What is up, everyone? This is Axe0316,
And this is Fizenteen.
and you're listening to The Chopping Block. This is a little podcast type segment that we have decided to do for our channels, and basically we're going to use this to talk about anything and everything gaming related because, it's almost as much fun to talk about all the gaming news and all those things as it is to play video games themselves. So, every week we're going to have a new topic on here, and we will take, viewer related topics and viewer related questions. And, our first topic for the first session of the chopping block is going to be the dreaded Bill S.978. Now I know that everyone on YouTube and everyone in the gaming community has already heard of this thing by now. It's extremely popular. Almost everyone has been made aware of this, which is a good thing. Now this isn't going to be us going crazy trying to form a mob, trying to start riots to, take down the government because of this bill. This is going to be us just listing some facts, listing some opinions, and trying to get the opinions of you guys. So as you listen to this and when you finish listening to it, please, if you have an opinion about this, please comment, tell us about it. Please give your opinion. If you don't have an opinion about this or you don't want to share your opinion, that's fine. But if you do, please don't hesitate to comment. Please don't hesitate to tell your friends about this because, we'd like their opinions too. Because, as gamers, this affects all of us. So basically, to give a brief intro of this bill, it's Bill S.978. It's also known as the Commercial Felony Streaming Act, and it's been introduced by three congressmen, and it's pending introduction to the Senate floor, which means they're not voting on it yet. It still has to get to the floor. Now, it's an amendment to United States Code Title 18, Chapter 113, subsection 2319, and what this basically does is it would make unauthorized streaming of copyrighted material a felony. The penalty could include up to 5 years in prison time and fines, and it defines illegal streaming as 10 or more times in a 180-day period, and the value of the illegal streaming material would have to be greater than $2,500, or the licensing fees of the material would have to be over $5,000. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is we want to mention that, Fizz, you know and I know, there have been a ton of articles, or a ton of articles and a ton of videos about this. Some people have been going completely off the wall, saying this is going to, destroy the internet and everything. It's going to destroy everything. And some people have just been laughing it off, being lackadaisical and nonchalant about it, being like, oh, let's not care. Fizz, talk a little bit about how we want to reach that middle ground, about how we don't want to, incite people to go crazy, but we don't want people to get too relaxed either. Talk about that for a little bit.
Okay, pretty much what we're trying to stress to you guys is that yeah, it's this is pretty big for, of course, like the gaming community as far as streaming wise, and of course like YouTube itself, because pretty much it's not like we're promoting piracy as you know uh, me and Axe will say we are not promoting piracy whatsoever. But YouTube, what we do on our channels is, we do tutorials and stuff like that. It's sort of like an advertisement type thing. But most people seem to be kind of relaxed and don't really pay attention to what the government is doing. And I think that, um, not like you're going to be like involved in, like you're going to actually run for Congress yourself or anything like that. But we're just saying that you do not need to take this lightly because it could turn into something bigger.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
this first, this first being, Ash will agree with me. This first being, if this was to be passed, I know that sometimes there's rumors that they were talking about, like over in China, how they monitor their internet for their country. Well, maybe this will probably lead up to it.
Right.
So we just don't need to take this lightly
And I know what
at all.
and I know what
So
people
that's what we're just trying to stress.
right. And I know that people are going to say, well, China has a different government system, we have a democracy, and that's exactly what we're saying. In this country, in our government system, the people have a right to be heard. We have a voice, and we have the ability to change things, or to at least attempt to. So that's what we need to do. So the first, I guess, the big thing to say is that we are not extremely pro-government, but we are not anti-government either. But what, as Fez was alluding to there, we need to keep an eye on this. We need to stay informed and stay involved. We need to keep up researching this because first thing, let's talk about why there's a need for this bill. Um, in case anyone here has ever studied law, you know that with the evolution of the internet in the last 10 years, the internet has really evolved and changed and became something huge, and it keeps expanding. And especially in this last decade, we've seen that. Like it existed before that, of course, but in the past decade, it's really, really grown. And you know, in a lot of things on the internet now, there are a lot of gray areas. Fizz, I think you'll agree with me on this, that when the founding fathers drew out the Constitution, they never really knew there would be an internet. They never really knew that there would be property that you couldn't hold in your hand. They never knew that there would be things that you could acquire, like these songs and these movies and these things, these files that you couldn't hold in your hand, things that weren't tangible. So I think you'll agree with me, Fizz, that now with the internet, there are a lot of gray areas when it comes to laws.
Definitely, and I think that right there, I guess that what these congressmen and senators are going to do is kind of use that to kind of, I guess, be a loophole, if you will, into making these laws or try to pass laws or something like that. But us as American people, giving them the rights as we have voted them in to lead our country, but also we have freedom of speech, and I know that's you know, been talked about as well. This thing could possibly, when people are like afraid that this is going to interfere with that constitutional right,
Right.
is freedom of speech.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just kind of want to go ahead.
Uh,
Go ahead, Ax. I'm sorry.
oh yeah. I was just going to agree with you there, and I was going to say that some people are also hiding behind that. They are saying that this bill can't pass because it violates freedom of speech. Keep in mind, this is a time where it's important for us to mention that, just as Fizz said, we put these people in there, so they're supposed to be the ones making the decisions based on the values that they should stand by, which is the reason they got voted in the first place. That being said, this is a country that at one time, think about prohibition. Now that of course they repealed prohibition, but at one time, that was in the Constitution. So don't put it past this country to do anything. You may say, some people may hide behind that First Amendment, like Fizz was talking about, freedom of speech, the Constitution, all this stuff. But keep in mind, you cannot ever just sit back and throw your hands up and say, well, we'll just let the government take care of it. We're not going to have to worry because, Fizz, like we were talking about, we have to stay involved and we have to stay informed as people.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if you don't, then it's like you're gonna be left out of the loop, and something comes about, and you do something you didn't know about it, but let's say that it became a law, then guess what? You're kind of screwed in
Right,
that
you have to
situation.
abide by it at
So
that
that's
point.
the reason why. So, so that's the reason why we're pretty much talking about this, is just to make you guys aware of what is going on if you have not heard about it.
Right, and we would love some feedback. So again, please, if you have an opinion and if you would like to voice it, please comment, please tell your friends and anything, because as we said before, some people have been on YouTube going crazy saying that it's going to destroy the world, and some people have been on here laughing saying, oh, it's not going to do anything. We're trying to get the middle ground here. We're trying to just get the issue out, get some feedback in a calm, rational manner with research, and therefore, this is something that I've researched a lot. And the problem with the internet is that, as I said earlier, we have a lot of gray areas now. We have a lot of areas that we're scratching our heads thinking, okay, is this illegal or not? Because when these laws were written before, about stealing and all this stuff, there was no internet. There was no, there were no files. Files are something that you can't hold in your hand. Files are something that, unless you put them on a disk, you can't set them on a store shelf. Now, Fizz and I, we've said before, we don't condone piracy. We're not those guys on here saying you can't stop the internet, you can't stop the internet. We take what we want, but we don't condone piracy. But Fizz, you were talking about how some video game companies were kind of in a way pushing for this because of they mentioned that it had been a financial burden on them with people pirating their uh, their games and also music and all this stuff. So go ahead and talk a little bit about those financial figures and how those companies have been trying to use that to use that for their side of this argument.
Okay. In a article that I got from a source, it's called the Bloomberg. I'm sorry. It's kind of hard for me to pronounce with my southern accent, so just forgive me. But But here it says is a piracy of, oh, I might as well just put in there too, X, that I quote, okay,
Right.
just make sure I'm covered. Um, and I quote, piracy of digital movies, music, and software costs businesses from 30 billion to 75 billion dollars in 2008 in the group of 20 leading global economies, according to a February report commissioned by the International Chamber of Commerce from Frontier Economics, a London-based consulting firm. Okay, so what they're saying is that from 30 to 75 billion dollars have been lost due to piracy, and this is where they find that, oh man, $75 billion, that's a huge chunk. But may I remind you, as like for instance, like since we are into gaming and we can all relate to this and everything, we've all seen on the internet at one point in time or heard from E3, like when they do like their financial growth in like this year or this quarter, we see how many millions of dollars, like over $200 million in a quarter. That is pretty substantial.
Yeah,
in my
that's huge.
personal opinion. So it's like, hey, they're just basing it on these combined 30 billion to 75 billion
Yeah,
dollars,
that's
and they're
multiple
acting like this
companies.
would be a huge chunk.
Yeah, that's multiple video game companies, and they're trying to use that argument to say that. Now, we're not saying that it's okay they lost profits. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying, oh, just because they make a lot of money, it's okay they lost, a few billion dollars. We're not saying that. What we're saying is a lot of video game companies and just companies in general are trying to use the argument that the loss of this money is what has gotten the economy in the shape it's in. And as everyone knows, you know, um, let me tell you something about the United States economy. The United States economy, it got this way for a number of reasons. It got this way for trying to police the world, which the Constitution does not give it the power to do. It got this way by trying to spend money on a planet, and then it wonders why it doesn't have the money to run a country. And it got this way because of printing hollow bills with nothing to back them, so the dollar became diluted. So no matter what anyone tells you, stopping piracy is not going to fix the economy. Um, doing the stuff, stopping piracy of games, stopping piracy of music, legalizing marijuana and taxing it, none of that is going to stop, this economic downturn. It's a drop in the bucket. Those are not the major reasons we're in the shape we're in.
Right.
We need to let people know
Exactly.
that. And when we say we're not for piracy, we really mean that because I mentioned before I'm a musician, and Fizz, you've dealt in music production and everything, so we know how much work goes into making a song. And
Oh yeah, definitely. And
yeah, we know how much work goes into making a song, and I can understand the disdain for the music companies to sit there and put all this work in making a song, which is a staggering amount of work in case you've never done it, just to have someone download the song, or furthermore download the whole album. And like I've said in the past, I assume it's the same for TV shows or movies or video games. And you know, um, Fizz, let's just talk for a minute about the reach of the internet. Go ahead and talk about how there's really nothing that you can't get off the internet, like it's somewhere on there.
yeah, I mean, pretty much the internet. And like the old saying goes, if you can't find it in the book, you can always find it on the internet. It's the internet is out there, and pretty much